So Kirby Air Riders just came out recently, and since there's no plans for it to have any DLC, that means only one thing. Sakurai finally gets the long vacation he deserves. Psych! Smashy Bros time! You thought you was getting a break, Sakurai? Nope. Your vacation is looking at a PNG of Hawaii for 30 seconds, then it's right back to work. Okay, jokes aside, a new Smash for Switch 2 is inevitable whether Sakurai decides to return as director for it or not. But where there's a new Smash game, there's always the question, who will be returning for this new game? What new characters could we see join the battle? In this video, I'm gonna figure out all of that by making my own fan roster for Super Smash Bros. 6. Keep in mind, this is just a wishlist roster and not actual predictions, because I know better than trying to figure out who Masahiro freaking Sakurai, the man who put a potted plant in Smash, would put in a new Smash game. But anyways, let's get into it. The first thing to figure out is the roster size. Since Ultimate already has the quantity and is still playable on Switch 2, I decided that out of Ultimate's 86 characters, I'm gonna bring back only 39 of them. The veterans I decided on mostly came down to 3 factors: how major of a character they are to Nintendo and gaming as a whole, which ones could benefit from having a reworked moveset, and how much relevance do they and their games have in this modern day and age, with a few exceptions. However, with only this many veterans coming back, there's bound to be some downright brutal cuts here and there, so you should probably brace yourself when we get to that part. As for the newcomers, I came up with a nice solid count of 15, and for the direction that this game could go, we could see a lot of previously stale franchises finally get the roster upgrades they deserve. This means that the total count for our base roster will be 54, which should be pretty decent. The way I'm going to present my characters is just simply by going through each series, stating which characters I'm keeping, who I'm cutting, and who I'm adding, and of course why I did. So let's go ahead and start with the Mario series. The most popular Nintendo franchise, it makes sense that Mario had 9 characters in Ultimate, but we're going to be cutting out 3 of those characters. The first 2 are Dr. Mario and Piranha Plant, and I feel like I don't even have to give an explanation for those. I'm also cutting Bowser Jr. because compared to other villains, he doesn't really stand out. Plus the Clown Car and the Koopalings, as much as Ludwig is my favorite Mario character, kinda holds him back from the potential of a good moveset. For new characters, I added Toad and Waluigi because both are key characters in the Mario series that everyone's been begging for in Smash. For the Donkey Kong series, I'm keeping all 3 characters and adding Dixie Kong to the mix. While we're here, I may as well point out how DK and Diddy are definitely going to get their Bonanza redesigns for the next game, considering games like Mario Kart World and Mario Tennis Fever are already doing that. The vast Legend of Zelda series sadly isn't so vast in Smash, with 3 Links, 2 Zeldas, and a Captain Falcon clone, so I'm fixing that by removing Sheik, Young Link, and Toon Link. If they really want to, maybe they can give Sheik a Link Between Worlds style redesign and recombine her with Zelda as a transformation character. Though maybe instead of her down B, the transformation can be done with shielding and pressing B like Inkling. Regardless, in their places are 3 new Zelda characters, which helps diversify the different games and their representation. And coincidentally, all 3 of them happen to be assist trophies in Ultimate, those being Skull Kid, Midna, and Girahim, representing Majora's Mask, Twilight Princess, and Skyward Sword respectively. For Metroid, I'm only cutting 1 character, that being Zero Suit Samus. While I won't be adding any new characters, although I do think Ravenbeak would be a fire pick, not gonna lie, I think Samus and Dark Samus will get reworked to make them different from each other, with Samus getting changes to be based on Metroid Dread, which I recently replayed and thought, wow, this is peak, they need to base Samus in the next Smash off of this, while Dark Samus gets reworked to implement more elements from her boss fights in the Prime games. Kirby and Star Fox are both in the same boat, where all 3 characters that are already in Ultimate have some degree of justification for returning, while also having an additional character that can be added, those respectively being Bandana Waddle Dee and Crystal, both of which have been heavily requested, and Crystal's inclusion in particular can help depart from the standard Star Fox formula when it comes to movesets. One series that I sadly can't say the same about is Earthbound, for as popular as the games are, there are a lot of RPGs in Smash, and if this game is going to be about moving forwards and trying to represent the current age of gaming, unfortunately Ness and Lucas just aren't going to qualify for it. Especially Lucas, whose game has never released outside of Japan. And then there's Pokemon. With 8 characters on the roster, only half of them can stay. Out of those, Pikachu and Mewtwo were no-brainers, since Pikachu is the mascot and Mewtwo is the most popular legendary. And the hype when it came to his return in Smash 4 is undeniable, so he's gotta stay. Pokemon Trainer is also staying because it's 3 Pokemon and switching between them makes for more unique gameplay, on top of the trainer being the actual protagonist in the Pokemon games. However, like I said with Zelda and Sheik earlier, I would change the way that the Pokemon swap between each other so that way each of them can get their own down B. Hashtag justice for Rock Smash. Lastly, I kept Incineroar. It's the most recent Pokemon rep, and its wrestler type fighting style makes it stand out from some of the other humanoid Pokemon. For newcomers, we're undoubtedly going to get reps from Sword and Shield and Scarlet and Violet, but since I don't play Pokemon, I don't really know or care which ones we get, just that we're going to get a Gen 8 and Gen 9 Pokemon. If you guys have a specific Pokemon you want to see, let me know down in the comments below. And while you're down there, why not hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. From one 8-character roster to another, we have Fire Emblem. But this one's gonna be even crazier, as we are cutting these 8 swords people down to just 3. Which 3 you might ask? Those would be Marth, Robin, and Byleth. Marth is the face of Fire Emblem, so it just makes sense to keep him. Awakening was vital in Fire Emblem's popularity in the West, and Robin's tone and Levin sword mechanics make him stand out compared to Chrom or Lucina. Similarly, Three Houses is the best-selling Fire Emblem game of all time, and while Byleth was controversial in Ultimate to say the least, his unique moveset based on the different weapon types in the games makes him a justified keep. Whew! Now that all of the big universes are out of the way, we just have a few smaller Nintendo universes to get through. For Kid Icarus, I'm going to keep all 3 characters, but like I said for Dark Samus earlier, I would want to see Dark Pit get changes to make him different from Pit, including using his staff outside his Final Smash, and also other weapon types from Uprising that we haven't already seen. Animal Crossing and Xenoblade both have 2 reps, but I'll be cutting out 1 from each, those being the Villager and Pyra and Mythra. I was torn between the 2 Animal Crossing reps, but despite her later introduction to the series, Isabelle has solidified herself as the most iconic Animal Crossing character, and she had just that slight boost in personality that made her my pick. As for Xenoblade, Shulk is basically the face of the series regardless of how you see it. However, this series won't be left in the dust completely, as I'm replacing Pyra and Mythra with Mio from Xenoblade Chronicles 3. I don't play Xenoblade, but from what research I've done, 3 seems to be the more popular game than 2, and Mio appears to be the most popular character from that game, so I decided to opt for her rather than Noah. Then there's ARMS, which is a unique circumstance, because even though there's only 1 character, I'm actually going to replace Min Min with Springman. Even though Min Min is one of the most disliked and boring characters in the game, Nintendo and Sakurai really don't seem to have a problem with acknowledging ARMS as a flagship Nintendo franchise. So I decided to put Springman in to make him more streamlined compared to whatever Min Min was, perhaps with a more traditional moveset. Plus he could have Springtron as a costume, which would be pretty cool as well. Now you may have noticed that I skipped over a couple of characters, specifically the single character Nintendo universes, so I'm going to group them together and go from there. That means we have Yoshi, Captain Falcon, Ice Climbers, Mr. Game & Watch, Wario, Rob, Olimar, Wii Fit Trainer, Little Mac, Duck Hunt, Inkling, and the Miis. Which, by the way, I'm consolidating into a singular Mii character rather than splitting into classes. Instead of rehashed moves from other characters, their custom specials would be based on various Mii series games, including custom Final Smashes. Of these 12 characters, I'm keeping exactly half of them, being Yoshi, Falcon, Wario, Olimar, Inkling, and Miis, since all of them have some level of either relevance or popularity that makes it reasonable to keep them. I'm also adding 2 new first-party universes to the mix, Chibi Robo and Isaac from Golden Sun, both of which are fan-favorite classics that people really want to see in Smash. At least according to this article from Source Gaming, which I scrolled down until I found the first 2 first-party characters from unrepresented franchises. So there it is, our 54 character roster for the next Smash game. Looks pretty nice, right? Fan favorites plus a whole variety of new challengers. Except something seems missing. Okay, I know what you're thinking. Where in the world are all the third-party characters? I personally think this game will reserve all of the third-party characters for DLC, while the base game is exclusively first-party. And I think this will be the case for several reasons. But perhaps the biggest one for making third parties DLC is the fact that this allows for extra time to deal with stuff like licensing issues and whatnot, as we have ever so witnessed with the Final Fantasy situation in Ultimate. And if this game is going to have a focus on rebooting certain characters' movesets, then I feel like also trying to go through copyright hell at the same time is going to take away from that. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if everyone is here, plus the chore of getting Cloud back is the reason that nobody besides Link got any kind of moveset changes whatsoever. I feel like once the base game is settled, then the DLC guests can start to be worked on, and have a more straightforward process from there. And that, ladies and gentlemen, was my roster for the next Smash game. Will this happen? Definitely not, because Sakurai is wildly unpredictable, but we'll just have to wait for a few years to see what happens. But anyways, that's it for this video. See ya!